Captain Elena Calloway stood at the edge of the command deck, her eyes scanning the stars that stretched out before her. The sleek silver ship, Aurora, cut through the vast expanse of space. She had led many missions before, but this one was different. The Federation, a union of hundreds of species across the galaxy, was facing an unknown threat, a species so feared that it had become a legend. The Ablaxians were not just another enemy in the Federation's long history of struggles. No, the Ablaxians were something far worse. Rumors spread across the galaxy that this race had wiped out entire planets, leaving only destruction in their wake. Their technology was advanced beyond anything the Federation had ever encountered. And worst of all, no one had ever seen one in person and survived to tell the tale. Elena knew the stories. Every officer did. The Ablaxians were said to be huge, towering beings with black armor, glowing eyes, and an aura of death surrounding them. There were whispers in every corner of the galaxy about the power they wielded and the fear they instilled, but no one had ever truly met them, at least not face to face. The Ablaxians had remained a mystery, a story that was passed on from generation to generation, growing in terrifying details with each telling. Elena's mission, however, was not to destroy them. No. Her mission was far more dangerous. She was tasked with negotiating peace with the Ablaxians. The Federation had sent Elena, one of its brightest and most capable diplomats, to make contact. Some believed this was a chance for the Federation to get ahead of the threat before it escalated, while others thought it was foolish to negotiate with a species known for its destructive power. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," Lieutenant Mara said, pulling Elena from her thoughts. Elena nodded, turning toward the young officer. She had been with the Aurora for years and had seen Elena in action countless times. The trust between them was solid, though Mara still showed signs of doubt about the mission. And Elena couldn't blame her. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Elena replied, trying to hide the growing unease in her stomach. This was not just another mission. She wasn't just negotiating a trade agreement or settling a minor dispute. This was something far more dangerous. It was the first contact with a species that the galaxy had feared for centuries. As the Aurora approached the designated coordinates, a strange silence settled over the crew. They had all heard the stories. No one knew what awaited them. Would the Ablaxians be everything they had imagined, or was there more to the tale than met the eye? "All hands prepare for arrival," Elena ordered. The crew members began their final preparations, checking systems, and running diagnostics. The ship slowed as it neared the abandoned planet where the Ablaxians were believed to reside. It had once been a thriving world, but now it was quiet, its surface marred by the scars of past wars. "Captain," Mara spoke again, "are we sure about this?" "The Ablaxians—" "I know, Lieutenant," Elena interrupted gently, "but we have to try. The Federation can't afford another war. We need to understand them. We need to know the truth behind the legends. If we fail, it could be disastrous for all of us." Mara hesitated but nodded. She had seen Elena lead through the most difficult situations, and her words carried weight. Still, the fear in her eyes was hard to ignore. The Aurora glided into orbit, and the crew looked out at the surface below. The planet appeared lifeless from a distance. There were no cities, no signs of life, just barren land and towering mountains. The reports had said the Ablaxians lived underground, hiding from the rest of the galaxy. But was this their home, or had it once been a battleground? Elena's mind raced with possibilities. "We've reached the surface," Mara announced. "Preparing to land now." Elena stood still, her mind focused. This could be the most important moment in the history of the Federation. One wrong move could lead to galactic war. She had to be careful, calm, and calculated. As the ship descended, Elena couldn't help but feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. What if they were all wrong? What if the Ablaxians weren't the monsters the galaxy made them out to be? What if they were just like any other race, trying to survive, misunderstood by all? The ship's landing gear touched the surface with a gentle thud. The silence outside was almost suffocating. Elena took a deep breath before standing and walking toward the airlock. She had been through countless diplomatic missions, but this felt different. The airlock doors opened with a hiss, revealing the planet's surface. It was cold and barren, with no signs of life except for the scattered remnants of what seemed like ancient ruins. Elena stepped onto the surface, her boots crunching the dust beneath her feet. "Captain, this is strange," Mara said, scanning the area with her equipment. "There's no sign of life here, just ruins, no Ablaxians." Elena looked around, her heart pounding. Was this a trap? Had they been led here for nothing? "This is only the beginning," Elena said quietly. "Stay alert. We don't know what we'll find here. Keep your communication devices open at all times." The team spread out, each member searching the ruins for anything that could explain what had happened to the Ablaxians. As they moved deeper into the ruins, Elena's eyes were drawn to a peculiar structure in the distance, tall and jagged as if it had been built centuries ago, but was still standing strong against time. It was unlike anything she had seen before. "Captain, over here," Lieutenant Mara called. "You need to see this." Elena rushed over, her pulse quickening. Mara had uncovered something that didn't belong. In the center of the structure, a massive stone doorway stood open as if waiting for them. It led to a dark underground passage. This is where they lived," Elena said, her voice full of awe. Mara nodded, but there was a hint of fear in her eyes. "Do you think they're still here?" Elena couldn't answer. She didn't know. The only thing she knew for sure was that the legends of the Ablaxians were about to face their first test. The truth was out there, hidden in the ruins of this forgotten world, and Elena Calloway was determined to uncover it, no matter the cost. The ruins of the ancient city stretched before Captain Elena Calloway and her crew. The air was still, with a quiet tension hanging in the atmosphere. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the old structure, every step echoed in the hollow spaces around them. The Aurora had landed just moments ago, and Elena's team was now on the surface, exploring what appeared to be the remains of the Ablaxians' home. "Captain, over here!" Lieutenant Mara's voice rang out, cutting through the silence. Elena rushed over, her boots crunching the dusty ground beneath her. Mara was standing next to a massive stone slab. The door-like structure seemed to have once been a part of a larger building, but now it was cracked and crumbling. The air had a cold, eerie feel, as though the ruins were holding secrets long forgotten. "What is it, Lieutenant?" Elena asked, stepping closer. Mara pointed at strange markings on the wall, runes, symbols, or perhaps something more. "These symbols don't match anything from the Federation's records," she said, her voice uncertain. "They look ancient." Elena studied the markings carefully. They were unlike any language she had seen before, but they carried a strange sense of familiarity. She felt like they were telling a story, but the meaning remained just out of reach. It was clear that the Ablaxians had once lived here, but there was no sign of them now. "We'll need to take this back to the ship for further analysis," Elena said, though she felt a sense of dread building in her chest. The quiet was unsettling, and her instincts told her something was off. The Ablaxians had been a mystery for so long, but now, standing in the heart of their lost civilization, the silence felt like a warning. Mara nodded, her eyes scanning the surrounding area. "Captain, something doesn't feel right." Before Elena could respond, a loud crash echoed through the ruins. It was so sudden that the crew jumped, weapons at the ready. Elena raised a hand, signaling for the team to halt. "Stay alert," Elena commanded, her voice steady despite the pounding of her own heart. "We don't know what we're dealing with here." The crew moved cautiously through the ruins, weapons drawn, eyes darting around for any sign of danger. The ground seemed to vibrate slightly beneath their feet, and Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. "Captain, look!" Mara suddenly shouted, pointing toward a distant corner of the ruins. Elena's gaze followed Mara's finger, and her breath caught in her throat. In the dim light, she saw what appeared to be a large, shadowy figure moving slowly through the mist. It was humanoid in shape, but its outline was vague, shifting like smoke. Elena raised her hand, signaling the crew to hold their position. They had only heard stories about the Ablaxians, but nothing could have prepared them for what they were seeing now. "Stay calm," Elena whispered to herself. She turned to her crew. "Get ready. We don't know if this is hostile, but we need to be prepared." The figure in the distance stopped moving, as though it sensed their presence. The air grew colder, and Elena could feel a strange energy in the atmosphere, as if the very fabric of the ruins was alive. Elena stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We come in peace. We are not here to fight. We are here to learn. Please, show yourself." For a moment, there was silence. Then, to Elena's surprise, the shadowy figure stepped forward, emerging from the mist. It was taller than any human, towering over them with a smooth, dark exoskeleton that gleamed in the dim light. The creature's face was hidden behind a mask-like helmet, but its posture was not threatening. It stood there, motionless, as if waiting. "Captain," Mara said, her voice barely a whisper. Is that one of them? An Ablaxian?" Elena couldn't answer. The creature before them seemed almost human, but something was off. Its eyes, glowing faintly beneath the helmet, were piercing. It had an air of ancient wisdom, but there was a sadness in its stance, a quiet sorrow that was impossible to ignore. "Are you an Ablaxian?" Elena asked, her voice steady but full of curiosity. The figure remained silent for a long moment. Then, to their shock, it spoke. Its voice was deep, rumbling, and echoing as if it came from far away. "Yes, I was once called an Ablaxian," the figure replied slowly. Its words were clear, but the accent was unlike any Elena had ever heard. "But I am no longer what you think." Elena's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't what she had expected. This creature standing before them wasn't the monstrous threat the galaxy had feared. It was a being of intelligence, perhaps more advanced than any race they had encountered. Then, "What are you now?" Elena asked, taking a cautious step forward. The Ablaxian's head tilted slightly, as if considering her question. "I am a survivor," it said simply. "The Ablaxians that you know were born of war and destruction. But It paused, a heavy sigh escaping from its chest. "I am one of the last of my kind hidden away from the galaxy. We are no longer the fearsome species you were told about. We are refugees. We hide because of the fear you all carry." Elena felt a pang of guilt. This Ablaxian didn't seem like a monster. It seemed like someone who had lived through unimaginable hardships. This was a being with a history, one that had been shaped by war, not born out of it. "Why hide?" Elena asked. "Why not show yourselves? Why keep running?" The Ablaxians' glowing eyes seemed to soften. "We were once a great race," it began, its voice full of sorrow. "But when the Federation and others came to our world, we were forced to defend ourselves. The galaxy feared us, and so we became the monsters you have heard of. We didn't want to be feared, but it was all we could do to survive." A long silence followed as Elena absorbed the weight of those words. The Ablaxians weren't the monsters the galaxy had made them out to be. They were survivors, forced to fight for their existence. "Then," Elena said, her voice quiet but resolute, "we need to tell the galaxy the truth. People need to know that the Ablaxians were not the enemy. You are not the enemy. The creature's eyes glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed. Perhaps. But it is too late. The fear has already spread. The galaxy has already made its judgment. Elena knew the road ahead would be difficult. The truth she had uncovered was not one that the galaxy would easily accept. But one thing was clear. The Ablaxians were not the monsters they had been painted to be, and Elena would do everything in her power to change the galaxy's mind. The Ablaxian before them was silent, its glowing eyes staring at Captain Elena Calloway as though waiting for something, an answer, a response. The crew stood still, watching the strange figure in awe. They had heard the stories, but nothing could have prepared them for this encounter. "Why are you telling us this?" Elena asked, her voice steady but filled with curiosity. "Why now?" The Ablaxian's gaze softened. It took a slow step forward, its massive frame almost casting a shadow over Elena and her crew. "Because you are not like the others," it replied. "You came seeking answers, not war. I trust you, Captain Elena Calloway. You and your crew may be the last hope for the truth." Elena's heart raced. What truth? The Ablaxians had always been painted as the galaxy's ultimate threat. But now, standing in front of one of them, she realized how little anyone knew. This being wasn't the monster the galaxy had feared. It was a survivor. And its story, a story hidden for so long, was just beginning to unfold. "We need to understand," Elena said softly. "Tell us everything. How did this happen? Why did the Ablaxians become so feared?" The Ablaxian nodded. "The galaxy has never known the full story. It started long before your Federation was established. My people, the Ablaxians, were once a peaceful race. We lived on a lush world where our civilization flourished. We were one with nature and advanced beyond your understanding of science and art." Elena and her team listened intently. They had always been taught that the Ablaxians were a species born out of war. But the creature before them painted a different picture, a picture of a lost civilization, one that was now reduced to ruins. "But then came the invaders," the Ablaxian continued, its voice filled with sorrow. "We were peaceful, yes, but our world was a treasure trove of resources. Many sought to take it from us. The first invasion came without warning. They were brutal. The Federation, the Zorans, the Eltarians, all of them came to our world with weapons of unimaginable power. They didn't come to trade. They came to conquer. They didn't understand us, and they didn't care to learn." Elena felt a heavy weight settle over her heart. The Ablaxians had been the victims, not the aggressors. All these years, the Federation had been so quick to see them as the enemy. But what if the truth was far more complex? "They destroyed our cities, our homes," the Ablaxian continued. "We were forced to defend ourselves, but we did not want war. We did not choose this path. But when the attacks became relentless, we were left with no choice. My people, the peaceful Ablaxians, began to fight back." The creature paused, as if reliving the pain of those memories. "We fought to survive, not to conquer. But the more we fought, the more the galaxy feared us. We had to protect our world, and in doing so, we became monsters in the eyes of others." Elena glanced at her crew. She could see the same disbelief in their faces that she felt in her own heart. The Ablaxians had never been the monster. They had been forced into a role they never wanted to play. "We thought we could change the tide of the war," the Ablaxian continued. "But with every battle, we lost a part of ourselves. The more we fought, the more the galaxy saw us as the enemy. And so, we decided to disappear. We left our world, and we hid in the shadows. The Ablaxians you fear today are not what we once were. We are a broken people, scattered across the galaxy, hiding from those who once feared us." Elena took a deep breath, trying to process everything the creature had said. The truth was painful, but necessary. The Ablaxians had been forced into a desperate situation, one that left them with no good options. But the galaxy had never known this side of the story. They had only known fear, the fear of a species they could not understand. "And now?" Elena asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What happens now? What do you want from us?" The Ablaxian tilted its head as if considering her words. "What I want, Captain, is simple. I want the galaxy to know the truth. The Ablaxians were never the monsters you have been told about. We are not a threat. We never were." "But if the galaxy learns the truth," Mara spoke up, her voice full of concern, "won't the Federation see this as a threat anyway? Won't they want to destroy you?" The Ablaxian nodded slowly. "Yes, there are factions within your Federation who will never accept this truth. They will never believe that the Ablaxians were not the enemy. But there are others who may see us for what we truly are. Survivors, not monsters. If you reveal our story, it will be a spark. Some will rise to support us. Others will want to destroy us. But we cannot live in hiding forever. We need the truth to be known." Elena turned to her crew, her mind racing. She had always known that the Federation could be ruthless in its pursuit of power. She had seen it firsthand in her years of service. The idea of revealing the Ablaxian truth to the galaxy was dangerous, but it was the only way to break the cycle of fear. If the Federation learned the truth, perhaps things could change. "How can we help?" Elena asked, her voice steady. The Ablaxian took a step forward, its glowing eyes softening. "Help us spread the truth, Captain. Help us show the galaxy that we are not the enemy. Together we can start the healing process, for my people and for the galaxy as a whole. But you must be prepared. The path will not be easy." Elena's mind raced with the weight of the decision before her. Revealing the truth about the Ablaxians would change everything. It would break the centuries of fear that had built up around their name. But it would also put her and her crew in danger. The Federation, the very system she had sworn to serve, might see her as a traitor. But Elena knew one thing for certain. The Ablaxians had suffered enough. The galaxy had been living in fear for too long. The time for change was now. "Then we'll do it," Elena said, her voice strong with resolve. "We will tell the truth. We will make sure the galaxy knows who the Ablaxians really are." The Ablaxian nodded slowly, a small, almost imperceptible smile forming beneath its mask. "Thank you, Captain Calloway. Together we will bring the truth to the galaxy. And perhaps one day we can heal the wounds that have divided us for so long." Elena looked out at the vast emptiness of space. The truth had been hidden for so long, buried beneath layers of fear and misunderstanding. But now it would be revealed, and with it, a chance for a new beginning, for the Ablaxians and for the galaxy. The silence in the ruins felt heavier now, like something had shifted in the air. Elena stood alongside her crew, trying to absorb the weight of the Ablaxians' words. They had been told a lie. For years, the galaxy had lived in fear of a species that, in reality, was just like any other, forced to fight for survival. Now, with the truth in their hands, Elena had to make a decision. She could return to the Federation, expose the Ablaxians for who they truly were, and try to end the centuries of hatred. But there was a risk. Not all factions of the Federation would be willing to accept the truth. Some would see this revelation as a threat, not an opportunity for peace. "The truth is dangerous," Elena muttered to herself, her thoughts racing. "Captain, are you all right?" Mara asked, her voice filled with concern. Elena turned to her lieutenant, her eyes tired but determined. "We've uncovered the truth. The Ablaxians are not what the galaxy thinks they are. But now we have to make a choice. We can reveal everything to the Federation, but some might try to destroy them. Mara looked down at the ground. I know. I've never seen you so uncertain before. I've never faced something like this, Elena admitted. We've been trained to follow orders, but this is bigger than anything I've ever encountered. A voice behind her spoke softly, pulling Elena from her thoughts. The Ablaxian had been standing quietly, watching them. You must not fear the truth, Captain. Fear is what kept us hidden for so long. Fear is why we've had to live in the shadows. If you believe in peace, you must believe in the truth. The galaxy will have to choose, but it is your choice whether to lead them into that future. Elena turned to face the towering figure. The Ablaxian was no longer just a mystery. It was a being that had known nothing but conflict and suffering for generations. And now, with the truth in their hands, it was time to confront the galaxy's fear. We need to find a way to spread the truth, Elena said, her voice steady. But we can't do it alone. The Federation is too large, too powerful. There are factions that will oppose us no matter what we say. The Ablaxian nodded solemnly. You are right. There are those who will never accept the truth. But there are others, Captain. There are those who will understand. And together, we can change the course of the galaxy. We are not the enemy. But the fear you have been taught? That is the true enemy. Elena stood in silence, thinking of all the steps ahead. She had always believed in the Federation's mission of peace and unity, but now she wasn't sure if the galaxy was ready to hear the truth. Would they embrace it, or would they reject everything they had been taught? The crew gathered around her, their faces a mix of uncertainty and determination. They had followed Elena through countless challenges, and now they would follow her again. They had no choice but to stand together. We need to get back to the Aurora, Elena said. We'll return to the Federation and make our case. We'll bring the truth to them, even if it means risking everything. The Ablaxian turned its glowing eyes toward Elena. Be careful, Captain. Some will see you as a traitor for bringing this truth to light. But I believe in you. The future of both our peoples is in your hands. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility settling on her shoulders. I understand, but we can't hide any longer. The truth will set us free. Back aboard the Aurora, the crew worked in silence. The ship hummed with activity as they prepared for the journey ahead. Elena sat in the command chair, staring out at the vast expanse of space. Her mind was focused, but the uncertainty of the coming days lingered. We'll need a plan, Elena said, turning to her team. We can't just show up at the Federation headquarters and drop this bombshell. We'll need allies. We'll need proof. And we'll need to act quickly. Lieutenant, Mara stepped forward. We'll help you, Captain. We all want the truth to come out. But we need to be strategic. The Federation isn't going to change overnight. Elena sighed. She knew Mara was right. The Federation had been built on a foundation of power and control. Challenging that structure would not be easy. But if the Ablaxians were going to have a chance at peace, they needed the galaxy to see them for what they truly were. Survivors, not monsters. All right, Elena said, standing. We'll start with the Council. They'll be our first point of contact. If we can't get them on our side, then we'll need to go public. We can't let the truth be buried again. The Aurora shifted as it powered up, and the crew prepared for their journey back to Federation space. Elena felt a mix of nerves and determination. This was uncharted territory. The Federation had never been tested like this before. Could they handle the truth? As the ship sailed through space, Elena found herself thinking of the Ablaxians' words. The fear you have been taught, that is the true enemy. Fear. It had shaped the galaxy's view of the Ablaxians. It had led to wars, invasions, and countless misunderstandings. The Ablaxians were the victim, not the villain. But now Elena and her crew had to face the greatest fear of all, revealing the truth to a galaxy that might not be ready to hear. Days passed as they journeyed back toward the heart of the Federation. The crew was restless, waiting for the storm that would surely follow. Elena spent long hours in her quarters, reading through records, consulting with the Ablaxian, and preparing her speech. She had to be ready. The truth could not be ignored any longer. Finally, the day came. The Aurora arrived at the Federation capital, a vast station orbiting the central planet. Elena stood at the bridge, gazing out at the towering structures below. She had always admired the Federation's vision, but today she felt the weight of their future. "Captain," Mara said, her voice full of quiet urgency, "we've just received a communication from the Council. They want to meet with you immediately." Elena nodded. "Prepare the team. It's time." As they prepared to meet with the Federation leaders, Elena felt a moment of clarity. The truth would no longer be kept in the shadows. The Ablaxians' history was about to be revealed, and with it, the possibility of a new future. But it would come at a price. Only time would tell if the galaxy was ready to face it. The Aurora glided through the vastness of space, its path set toward the Federation capital. Captain Elena Calloway stood at the bridge, her eyes locked on the stars ahead. The time had come. The truth about the Ablaxians was no longer a secret. It had to be revealed, no matter the cost. "We're entering Federation space," Lieutenant Mara said, her voice calm but tense. "The Council's response is already waiting for us." Elena nodded, her stomach tight. She had known this moment was coming, but now that it was here, it felt even more daunting than she had imagined. She turned to her crew, each one of them standing silently, awaiting their orders. They had fought together, traveled together, and now they were about to face the most difficult challenge of their lives. "Prepare for the meeting," Elena said. "We'll be speaking directly with the Council leaders. This could change everything. Stay sharp, and be ready for anything." The crew moved into action, each one following their tasks with a sense of urgency. Elena walked toward the communication station, where the Federation Council awaited her. The truth she carried was dangerous. Some would embrace it. Others would fear it. She couldn't predict which way things would go, but she had to try. The Ablaxians deserved the chance for peace. As the communication link established, Elena could see the faces of the council members flicker on the screen. They looked at her with solemn faces, their eyes betraying both curiosity and skepticism. "Captain Calloway," Counselor Zaylan, the head of the Galactic Council, said, his voice gruff and serious. "We've received your report. The situation is grave. Tell us, Captain, what is this truth you speak of? What have you learned about the Ablaxians?" Elena stood tall. Her voice was steady, though her heart was pounding. "The Ablaxians are not the monsters we've been taught to fear. They are survivors, forced to defend their world from invaders. They fought for their very existence. The galaxy's perception of them as destroyers is based on fear and misunderstanding. They were once a peaceful people, but after the Federation and other races attacked their home, they had no choice but to fight back. They have been living in hiding ever since, afraid of the consequences of revealing their true nature." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Elena could see the tension in the room, their eyes filled with doubt and disbelief. "Captain," Counselor Ressa spoke up, her voice sharp, "are you telling us that the Ablaxians have been living among us, hidden, in plain sight? And you expect us to believe they are not a threat?" Elena met Ressa's gaze, her own eyes firm with conviction. "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. They are not a threat. They never were. The Ablaxians were forced into war, but they've paid the price for it. They are not our enemies. They deserve the chance to live in peace, just like every other race in the galaxy." There was a long silence. Elena could feel the weight of the moment hanging in the air. The council was divided. Some would be open to the truth, but others, like Counselor Ressa, would never accept it. Counselor Zalen was the first to speak again, his voice grave. You ask us to believe that the Ablaxians are no longer a threat. But the galaxy is built on the foundation of security. The Federation's laws were put in place to ensure peace, to protect us from dangerous species. If we were to accept this truth, we risk everything. The Ablaxians could still be dangerous. Elena took a deep breath. They are not dangerous, Counselor. They are not the monsters you've been told about. The true threat is the fear we've carried for so long. Fear of the unknown. Fear of a people who were forced into a battle for survival. The Ablaxians deserve a chance to rebuild, to integrate into the galaxy without fear of persecution. If we do not act now, we may lose the chance for peace forever. The room grew tense as the council members whispered among themselves. Elena could hear their voices rising in argument. Some were clearly in favor of revealing the truth, while others remained steadfast in their opposition. We cannot allow this to happen, Counselor Ressa snapped. The Ablaxians are too dangerous. If we open our borders to them, we risk everything the Federation stands for. Elena's heart sank, but she refused to back down. The Federation was built on unity and understanding. If we reject this opportunity for peace, we are no better than the forces that forced the Ablaxians into hiding. The truth is not something to fear. It is something to embrace. Counselor Zalen looked at Elena with a mixture of respect and concern. You speak of peace, Captain. But peace comes at a cost. We've worked too long and too hard to build the Federation. To allow the Ablaxians to join us now, after all that's happened, would threaten the very foundation of what we've built. Then, what do you propose? Elena asked, her voice unwavering. Do you want to continue hiding the truth? Do you want to let fear control us for another generation? Counselor Zalen looked to the other members of the council. The tension in the room was palpable, but Elena could see that some of them were beginning to soften. It wasn't enough to change Ressa's mind, but it was a start. Elena knew that change would come slowly, but it would come. Captain, Zalen said finally, we will not make a decision today. We need time to discuss this further. The Ablaxian issue is more complicated than you realize. But you have given us something to think about. We will convene again soon with... That the communication link was cut, leaving Elena and her crew in a heavy silence. Elena leaned back in her chair, exhaling deeply. She had done all she could. The truth was out, but it would take time for the galaxy to accept it. Do you think they'll ever agree? Mara asked, her voice uncertain. Elena looked at her, the weight of the decision resting heavily on her shoulders. I don't know. The Federation is built on fear and control. Change is never easy, especially when people are afraid. But we've taken the first step. Now, we wait. The Aurora drifted silently through space, and for the first time in a long while, Elena allowed herself to feel a flicker of hope. The future was uncertain, but she knew one thing. She had made the right choice. Now, it was up to the galaxy to decide if it would accept the truth. And if it didn't, Elena would be ready to fight for it. The Aurora drifted silently in space, its engines humming softly as Captain Elena Calloway stared out of the viewport at the vastness of the galaxy. The Federation capital was behind them now, and with it, the Council's decision. It had been a tense meeting, full of doubt and fear. But it was clear. Elena's revelation had sparked something. The truth about the Ablaxians could not be ignored any longer. Now the galaxy would have to decide whether it would embrace this new reality or continue living in the shadow of fear. But Elena had done what she could. She had shown them the truth. The Ablaxians were not monsters. They were survivors, and they deserved a chance to rebuild, just like every other species in the galaxy. Captain, Mara's voice broke through Elena's thoughts. The council has called another meeting. They want to discuss the Ablaxian situation again. Elena turned toward Mara, a deep sense of exhaustion settling in. The crew had done everything they could, but the waiting, the uncertainty, was wearing on them all. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Elena replied, her voice steady despite her tiredness. "I'll be ready for the meeting, but this time I won't wait for them to decide. The truth is out. We can't go back to how things were before." The crew had gathered around the conference table on the Aurora, their faces drawn with fatigue. The tension from the previous meeting still lingered in the air, but there was a spark of hope among them. They had given the galaxy the truth, and now it was time to see if it could change anything. "We need to be ready for anything," Elena said to her crew. "The council may resist, but we've already made our stand. The Ablaxians deserve a chance, at peace. If they can't accept that, we will take the next step on our own." Lieutenant Mara nodded, her eyes reflecting the same determination that had fueled Elena since the start of the mission. "We're with you, Captain." The doors to the conference room slid open, and a calm, composed voice filled the air. "Captain? Calloway, we are ready for you now." Elena stood up, her mind racing, but her steps steady. The crew followed her into the meeting room where the council was waiting. The faces on the screen were the same: Councillor Zalin, Councillor Ressa, and a few others who had been silent during the first meeting. "Captain," Councillor Zalin greeted her, his tone much softer than before. "We've reviewed your report, and we've had discussions. It seems the truth is harder to ignore than we first thought." Elena met his gaze, her heart pounding. The silence in the room was deafening, and she could feel the weight of their judgment pressing down on her. "The truth has always been there," Elena said firmly. "It was hidden, but now it's out in the open. The Ablaxians are not what we thought. They are not the enemy. They were forced to fight for survival, just like so many others in this galaxy." The council members exchanged looks, but no one interrupted. Elena pressed on, feeling the urgency rise within her. "We can't keep living in fear. The Ablaxians are not the threat. The fear itself is the real danger. We have to stop running from the truth and start facing it." Councillor Zalin nodded slowly, and Elena could see the change in his eyes. He was thinking, reconsidering everything he had been taught. This was the moment. "You're right, Captain. Fear has shaped our history for too long, and perhaps it's time to change that." "But there are still questions," Councillor Ressa spoke up, her voice sharp and filled with skepticism. "We cannot simply invite the Ablaxians back into the galaxy without knowing they are truly safe. We've seen what they are capable of when pushed to the edge." Elena turned to face Ressa, her expression unwavering. "They are not monsters. They were forced into war, and they've paid the price. They've hidden from the galaxy for long enough. They want peace just like we do, but they need a chance to prove it." Zalin leaned forward, his voice steady but thoughtful. "And what of the other species? The Federation's allies? The ones who still view the Ablaxians as a threat? How do we ensure they will accept this new reality?" Elena knew this question would come. The Ablaxians had a reputation that would not be easily erased. We will prove it to them. Through diplomacy, through cooperation. We will show the galaxy that the Ablaxians are not the threat. We will build the trust that has been broken. But it has to start with us, the Federation. If we can't accept the truth, how can we expect anyone else to? There was a long silence in the room as the council members considered her words. Elena held her breath, knowing that this moment would decide the future. Finally, Councillor Zalin spoke. "We agree, Captain. The Ablaxians will be allowed to return to the galaxy, but it will be a process. We will send ambassadors to their homeworld, and we will set up a framework for peace talks. We must ensure that the Ablaxians are truly ready to reintegrate." Elena's heart lifted at his words. It wasn't a complete victory yet, but it was a start. "Thank you, Councillor Zalin. Thank you for giving them a chance. Counselor Ressa, though still skeptical, nodded. This is not the end of this. There will be challenges ahead, but I am willing to give this a chance. The communication link cut, and the room fell into a stunned silence. Elena felt a weight lifting off her shoulders. The truth had been accepted, at least for now. There was still much to be done, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. The Ablaxians had a future now. And the galaxy had a chance to rebuild, to heal from the fears that had divided them for so long. Days later, the Aurora was en route to the Ablaxian homeworld. Elena stood on the bridge, watching as the stars passed by. The Federation's decision had changed everything. The Ablaxians would return, and the galaxy would have to learn to accept them. But that was the future. Today, Elena and her crew had done their part. Captain, Mara said, her voice breaking Elena's thoughts. We've received a message from the Ablaxians. They're ready. Elena smiled. Then let's go home. The ship's engines roared to life as they set their course for the Ablaxian homeworld. It was the beginning of something new, a new chapter for both the Ablaxians and the galaxy. And Elena, standing at the helm, knew this was only the start of a much bigger journey.